one of the things that people have been talking about is about Internet of Things, and I guess the audience today comprised of different background and discipline, especially from UiTM. I can see that around 400 over people have been watching now on YouTube. That's great. Another thing is that people have been talking about IR 4.0. What exactly is the Industrial Revolution 4.0, and how does this, what's the relationship between IoT itself and also the IR 4.0? And then people are thinking about, if it impacts my life, what can we do with this new technology? How do we start our journey or even start building our own IoT solutions? The talents out there is still lacking. I would say it's still lacking. It's not many of us are still in this area of new technologies. Even though these IoTs have been quite some time, yeah. But let me share with you about that historical journey that we have been talking about this Internet of Things. It's not something that we have been talking about since 2014, but it has been around for many years. Yeah. Okay. Let me share with you a screen slides here. Okay. If you take a look at IoT, is there any difference between Internet of Things before COVID-19 or even after COVID-19? In terms of technology-wise, most likely it will not have an impact. But in terms of how we adopt or embrace this new technology, most likely we're going to have some big difference. Yeah. Let me share with you maybe for the start. When we talk about the prerequisite, what exactly, even before we deploy IoT, what exactly is the prerequisite for IoT or even the IR 4.0? We might be quite suddenly being, caught with this new term IR 4.0. What exactly the 1.0 or 2.0, or even have you ever encountered in the era of 3.0? Yeah. So people have been quite confused about this term. Suddenly we are being pushed and being given this new term of 4.0 and IoT. But take a look back at what happened last year. Of course, you've seen that COVID-19 is the biggest, shaker and the biggest that, enabler that transform us in the way that we do things. Yeah. People have been talking about, I don't have internet access, and people put, their hotspot into a bottle and put into, buluh and then bamboo and push up and then have a better coverage because they just need to get that right of coverage. And we have seen because of VBO now, we have seen that people are trying to get internet access. They have to find many ways of getting, the right coverage and the right speed, most likely, because without that kind of speed, we are unable even to have this kind of YouTube or webinar online right now. Yeah. So the prerequisite of the new technology like IoT and IR 4.0 is digitalization. Yeah. But we could understand, even before the digitalization or the digital transformation, actually we require digitization first. A lot of times our content are still in analog form. I'm sure that, traditionally we have been conveying our content, lectures, tutorials, even going to the labs. It's all in manual or analog. Yeah? It's all in physical, on papers. So it's nothing that turned into digital. So suddenly when we are offline, when we are away, remote, there must be a way for us to convey that analog information. So digitization is one of the main key. And with this digitization is not enough. So we need connectivity. So we need a way for us to transmit the data. So internet is very key in this thing. So because of the internet, there are different kind of media that being transmitted over the internet. Initially, of course, it's purely data. Text is sufficient. Maybe audio is still lower. speed that you can require, maybe around 32 kilobit digital or 16 kilobit video audio. But when it turns into video, then we require at least a minimum speed of 2 megabit per second. So content is going to be digital and it's going to be multimedia, requires a bigger, higher transmission rate. And from there, then you have access to your computers and you can do a lot of this, embrace this new way of doing things. Yeah, emails now is one of the workflow that you've been doing. But are we doing a lot of this transformation, not just transmitting the data, but you need to do some, what we call that, a workflow, your workflow to be in digital form. For example, applying to registration in the universities. Is there a registration process that needs you to be physically there, or everything is going to be online? The way that you make payment, for example, do you need to make payment using cash or using online payment? So these are the things that we are seeing now is going to be transformed. So with that, then only that we are ready to move towards another level. Yeah. So every time a new technology like this happen, it will create what we call the creative disruption. This has been coined by Joseph. So he says that the way that technology progress improves the lives of many, but only at the expense of a smaller few. Meaning to say that any transformation, of course, it will impact some group of people, but it's only a small group of people. Maybe they might lose jobs, yeah, but maybe they need to be reskilled too. Yeah, so it's about time for it. It will never, you cannot say that you can avoid this kind of technological progress. It will come, and you have to embrace it. Internet, no one can run away from internet. So that's one of the fundamental things that is happening now. But of course, internet is one of the technologies, but we are seeing other technologies that's going to impact us. So you have seen the days that when people still using the elevator punya operator just to operate the elevator down. Now with manual, with automatic, you don't have that. People weaving looms and all that for clothes. It's all now mechanical and also automation. Cameras, we don't use Kodak anymore, so film, so it's all digital. So things have changed. And this is what really the key in terms of transforming ourselves. Yeah. So when we talk about this, we can't run about the phases, the evolution that's happening, or the revolutions that are happening within us. There is this misunderstanding too about the term Industry 4.0 and Industrial Revolution 4.0. There's a word revolution there. Yeah. And let me share with you this era, which have been defined by many people. In the case, like when we talk about Industry 4.0 in the 1700s, this is where mechanization, steam power, using manual are the one that's being used to help producing in the factory. But the moment they discover electricity in the 1870s, this is where you can do a lot of mass production. It can help their assembly line, and a lot more people can you can use less people to even doing a mass production. But when electronics had been introduced, automation, computers in 1960s and all that, you will see this automation is being used in the factory. But today we call it cyber physical, where you see the integration or the mergers between a physical world and the cyber world. This is where the Internet of Things comes in. So you use a device which have sensors to be connected in the factory to do a lot more monitoring process and helping you to make sure that you can generate or create your products in a more productive manner. Yeah. But there is also a term called Society 4.0. There's no term about Industry 5.0 yet, but people have coined the term Society 5.0. So to differentiate this Society 4.0 is being coined by a country which is in Japan. Japan looks at a different way of determining the whole society. So when the society is very old, traditional way, there's still a hunting society, they call it 1.0. When this society moves toward agriculture, they call it 2.0 society. When the society is embracing industry, factories, so more and more people move towards the urban areas, these are the society of 3.0. The society that almost all of us are now is when internet comes by, and you see that a lot of people exchange information, social media and all that. This is the information society. The super smart society is what they are defining now. So in 4.0, normally you are trying to find information. You are seeking information from your own device. In 5.0, what they're saying is that the society or the person is actually at the center, but the information will come to you. So rather than you go and seek out the right information will find you. So that's how they will see that the super smart society, because of the intelligence between that, they know your profile, what information that you require, automatically that information will be able to come to you. So that's Society 4.0. So in IR 4.0, the way that I can see it, this is the way that most of us have defined, is that it doesn't only apply to what you call that factory or manufacturing sector, because when we launched the Industry Forward, which is in 2018, it was meant for that kind of sector. So we are thinking of increasing the capability and competitiveness of our SME. But we feel that Industry Revolution 4.0 go across to many sectors or in many industries, regardless whether it's agriculture, healthcare, e-commerce, education. It go across many sectors. So it doesn't mean that Industry 4.0 is only meant for manufacturing. Yeah. So that's why when we coin this term, if you are in the era of 1.0, you know that you will be using manual and physical tools. People are using their hands and their physical tools. You are in that era. So when you move towards your machine, which have electrically powered, you are in the era of 2.0. So the era of 3.0 is when automation comes in. You have internet, you have computers, you have databases and online. So this is the era of 3.0. When technologies that comes in with the new technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, robotics, IoT, big data analytics, drones. These are the technologies that is in the era of 4.0 that brings in more intelligence. So you have more data that you are creating more data. With that data, you can make better decisions. So this is the era of the 4.0. So I'll give you an example where in Malaysia, so when we launched this, we say that there are certain technologies which impacts the manufacturing sector. So they have defined in their blueprint, for example, like cybersecurity, additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing. They have autonomous robots, IoT, cloud computing, AI, augmented reality, big data analytics. These are some of the technologies which is defined to help in the industry, in the manufacturing sector. Yeah, but then in the when we talk with in construction, for example, they say that most likely these pillars of technology which being defined Industry Forward cannot be applied in our construction 4.0, they call it. So in construction 4.0, they have 12 technologies which they define it. So for example, they might be the same, like IoT, robotics, VR, blockchain might be the same, but they might have like building information modeling. They might have prefabrication and modular construction. They might have advanced building material. This is related to the construction sector. So if you are in the education sector, you might also define different technologies which can have impact in your education. So education 4.0, what does it mean? Does it have 9 pillars of technology? Does it have 12 or does it have 16? You can define this. This is where I think Malaysia only at the moment focusing on the manufacturing sectors, but I heard that the country is also trying to, for every sectors, they might have their own blueprint, pillars of technology. So just before that, and that's this term, the revolution. We got to understand when we talk about revolution, revolution means it is a very disruptive change. So we are not saying that we are in the evolution stage. Evolution is a very slow and gradual change. So when we talk about revolution, it must be very disruptive. It must be sudden change. So if you want to move from era of 3.0 to 4.0, it must be very disruptive. Yeah, it must be a very sudden change. You cannot evolve slowly when people are moving very fast. So a lot of companies who sees that technologies are happening around them, but they were not very focusing. They're not take very seriously. They're going to be obsolete. So every 3 to 7 years or even 10 years, technology will come in cycles. So there will be, technology will come in very slow, at a very immature stage, but they will mature later. And the moment it will gain less traction because new technologies comes in to replace them. So this is what's happening. If organizations don't adapt, embrace the new technology, they will become obsolete themselves. So you take a look at a lot of these industries that's happening because of this technology disruption. Jobs have been replaced by many technologies. For example, the human travel agents, you see TripAdvisor, you see hotel.com. So all of this being online. You have tax accountant being replaced by applications, newspaper, everything's now online. When suddenly everyone is putting a newspaper online, newspaper in physical form is going to be reduced. Human translators, now you have machines. Secretaries, I used to have secretaries, now I don't have to have secretaries. You have phone operators, now you only have one phone operator to support you most likely. And then the brick mortar, that sells in the physical form, now no longer. You can buy everything online, Amazon and all that. The financial professionals, job recruiters, now it's being replaced by LinkedIn, for example. That's the simplest way of replacing your current job. You see the hotel and motel industry, the Airbnb, that's the driving jobs. For these autonomous cars, pilots being replaced by drones. You no longer have pilots, like so-called pilots that can fly planes, but pilots that can actually be you that can fly the drones. And the manufacturing industry, postal workers, everything's now using email, digital. Maybe most likely radio DJs going to be replaced too. Teachers and college professors, you never know. You might have AI robots to replace them. Yeah. And then you have televisions now, everything on Netflix, online libraries, farmers and ranchers. This is at the time when people are using technologies to replace most of the farmers and all that. Yeah. So this is a very big impact, and this happens even before COVID-19. So, but COVID-19 will, of course, impact it further because it will expedite the whole process. Because if without COVID-19, we are slow in embracing technologies, and suddenly we now found out that we need internet access, we need digital information, digital content to exchange and even to do learning online and all that. So this is a very big disruption that's happening. And recently in Malaysia, what happened is that we have launched what we call My Digital. It's a framework, a blueprint launched by the government, really to look at the whole the digital economy of Malaysia, because now we feel that digital is important for us to becoming more competitive. And what we are seeing now is these ripples of technologies. As you need to understand that if only a single technology that we embrace, it might not have a very big impact. But when you are embracing different technologies and you are leveraging the ripple effect of these technologies, it can become bigger and become more powerful. You know, one plus one is no longer two. One plus one can be even three or five. So that is the impact of technologies. So uh, you take a look at technologies also come in this wave of cycles, even like mobile communications. Did you know that when we launched 5G, at that early stage, actually the technology of 4G should be at a very matured stage. Yeah? And 3G is already dying because it's a 10-year cycle. So every 5 years, the technology will peak after it launch. After that, it will die down and it will die off and being replaced by new technologies. So, for example, like when they launched the 5G commercially, there's no research anymore. They just launched it for commercial. You will see that the element of 6G is coming in. So you have 5 more years to make sure that you can create new support or even contribute to this 6G community. After 5 years, you will see that the new commercial 6G will come in. Yeah. So these are the cycles that you always need to keep track of trend to ensure that when exactly that you should work on new technologies, when exactly that you should stop doing research because it's already obsolete, so when is the term that you should become the first adopter, or you want to become the laggards where everyone after they have launched their network, and then we are the one that become late in that space. So you see that first generation, second generation, even though first generation is no longer here, you only can see the second generation still using very old technology, SIM card and all that. 3G we're phasing out. We are now having 4G, and now 5G network. So as I mentioned to you that we have these three tsunamis that's going to happen and have happened. The first tsunami is the one that you are doing now on fixed internet. Then it's moving towards mobile internet. Everyone have their own internet access in their pocket. That's the power of having internet in your pocket. The knowledge is just with in front of your fingertips. But now you will see that technologies that can embed the internet into devices. Now you see the Internet of Things will come in. Anything that you can imagine of, you can put sensors there, and it can become internet enabled. So IoT itself have been coined by Kevin Ashton since 1999. He just wants to solve the problem of when he's working in Procter and Gamble. He wants to solve the problem of finding and understanding how many lipsticks at the store, the color of lipstick. So he wants to manage the assets. So he put RFID and all that. Then he will know how many in the warehouse, at how many at the shops and all that. So he coined the term Internet of Things. But I don't want to delve into so much about the definition of technical definition, but IoT is having very simple layers of technologies. But when he coined this 1999, Malaysia was not many Malaysians did not hear about IoT until 2014. So 2014, maybe because we have launched IoT strategic framework, the national one, and now people are trying to Google a lot more about, hey, what is IoT? And in Malaysia, try to Google this Google Trends. You just look at Google Trends and see Malaysia. They say, okay, Malaysia now start to Google IR 4.0 in 2018, and now most likely we have been googling a lot of this lah. So you if you want to compare other countries, you will know where Malaysia stands against other countries. Yeah. So with that kind of definition, if I ask you now, which era of industrial revolution are we now? Maybe you guys can also put that in the YouTube chat. You take a guess. You have seen the definition. I'll just take a look at the chatting in the YouTube channel. Which era are we in that you live in? Either you are in the urban area or whether you are in the rural area. As I mentioned just now, the era of 1.0, when everything is physical and manual. When you are in the era of 2.0, you're using electrical. In the era of 3.0, you are using internet access, and the era 4.0, you're using new technologies. Yeah. So take an example again. If you cannot define it, the way that you cook, in which era that you cook, if still using, periuk and all that, all this uh, arang and all that, cool. So you are in the era of 1.0. That's how you cook in the kampung, most likely. Yeah. In the era of 2.0, you have oven, which is electrical. In the era of 3.0, you might have microwave oven that you can program it. But in the era of 4.0, are you printing food? A 3D food, they call it. So you can print your burger using a 3D printing food. Right? So this is what in the era of 4.0. So in the era of where you are teaching, either you are the students or you are the lecturers, in which era are we in? If you are teaching using pen and paper, blackboard, whiteboard, and all that, you are still in 1.0. Are you doing that in the universities and the schools? Are you using transparency, OHP, using plastic, that plastic you write out with your pen and all that, and using a marker, and then, or you're using online, or the way that we are doing this webinar, using online teaching. Or in the era of 4.0, you're using augmented reality, you're using virtual reality, you're using robots to replace the teachers. Are we in that era? So which era are we in now? I can see that some of you says that we are 3.5, 3.0. Okay, the way that we transact, are we in the era of 1.0 using cash to transact? Or are we using a cash register or calculator even to do that, because it's just electrical to do the transaction? Or using 3.0 using credit card online? Or maybe 4.0, you're using your smartwatch or even e-wallet. Maybe kita kat Malaysia ni canggih sikit lah in term of in this era. So the way that we transact maybe most likely either 3.0 or 4.0. So when we ask around, maybe most likely if we are in urban area, you are quite more advanced. But in the era, if you ask in the rural areas, they are still in the 1 or 2 era. Yeah. So where are we now? People say that we are 2.7. So on average, we are 2.7. So 2.7 means that we are not totally online. Kan? It's nearby to online. If you're 3, everything is online and digital. So once we have that, then easier for us to embrace the new technologies of 4.0, the one that we have been talking about, IoT lah, virtual reality lah, robotics lah dan sebagainya. Okay. So if we know that we are very advanced in this, but why is it for us is very slow for us to embrace and adopt it? Yeah? So we see that there are many challenges lah. Yeah? One of the things that people still have difficulty to define their business case. Exactly what I want to do in my company. What exactly this transformation process can help me? The IR 4.0 help me. So to solve what problem? So they have to define that. And maybe the new business model, the way that we buy things, deploy things, charge things, we sell these solutions, the new business model might change. And the way that we do our processes might also be different. You might have 100 processes now being reduced to 40 processes. The way that you do the action, maybe you need more people, you might not need more people. So you might reduce all these processes. So the change management needs to happen. Yeah. And then you need to see that if you're working in silos of organization, you might have difficulty to get the buy-in from marketing, strategy, IT, network, HR, finance. So you have difficulty in getting that buy-in. And then finally, people also wants to do these pilot processes because they need to have that buy-in, the culture of the company. You see that a lot of organization, which is very young organizations, these are the Gen X, Gen most likely Gen Y, Gen Z. These are the new people who lives in the digital world, so they want to move it faster. But if you have this between the old baby boomers, the Gen X, which is very traditional, you might have difficulty in getting the right mindset, you know. So talents, most likely the one that the new generations that coming out from the universities are much better. They are more well equipped with the new technologies. Yeah. So now, what we are saying is that why now IoT? Are we seeing that IoT is now becoming a very big thing? Is it turning into what we call a tsunami, the third internet of tsunami? So no, what we are seeing now, okay, let us take a step back, because people sometimes have misunderstanding or define wrongly about IoT. They only thought IoT is only sensor. No, it's not. There are four main components which being divided. One is that this is about the sensors and the actuators. Sensors is the one that can sense it. Actuators is the one that can react upon the triggering upon the environment between them. So temperatures is from the analog world, now it turns into digital. Human have 5 senses. Some people say human have 6 senses, but then only 5 senses. And now digital can be more than 10, 20 senses. You might have proximity, humidity, pressure, gas, and all that. Yeah. And then we have connectivity. Connectivity can comes in many forms. Either it's a fixed network or wireless network. So there's a lot of technologies in wireless. I will share with you later. And then there's IoT middleware. You need to send your data. You need to park your data. Somewhere need to be host your data and manage your devices. This middleware will help you in terms of that. Of course, once you have extracted and aggregate all your data, you need to do something with the data. You can create new applications. You can have smart building, smart agriculture, smart education, smart whatever smart things that you need to do. You create new applications, or you can do like analysis of the data. You can do some machine learning, deep learning inside that, and can make some prediction out of that. Yeah, you can, with that you can make a better applications, can create many things lah, maybe new product, for example. Yeah. So what we are seeing now is that hardware at one time is expensive, now becoming smaller and cheaper, more powerful. The connectivity now is everywhere. You can find it. Previously, maybe you use like 3G, 4G. Now you have IoT network, the NB IoT, the Sigfox, the LoRa, and then you have software development. And now it's much easier for us to develop applications. Sometimes it's drag and drop sort of thing. You see Moore's law, every 18 months or 2 years, the number of transistor double, becoming more powerful and smaller chipset. The Metcalfe's law, the data can be collected from different nodes or devices, the network effects that comes in. Every nodes are be talking to each other. So this is when you see that the cost and the number of data that being generated is becoming, more important. And the way that we do things, like, they ask us, okay, where to start? What are the things that you want to monitor? Because Internet of Things can be like 20 billion devices in the world, or 50 billion devices, depending what are the things going to be connected. Yeah. So your wearable here can be connected, your weighing machine can be connected, your blood pressure can be connected. So everything, your house can be connected. So exactly what do we want to get this product to be connected? So we have to ask these two things. It needs to be connected if the asset that you want to monitor is expensive enough and worth for you to connect. Secondly, you want to know that the asset that you want to monitor is impact because of the surrounding environment. Yeah. So for example, the goods, the foods, the fruits that have been sent over through a logistic lorry and all that, you want to monitor that the quality of the goods, and even the location where it is. The human, the asset is actually the health of the person. You want to know how healthy this person is. And then you want to know your house is also an asset. The security is important. You might have a camera or motion detector. Your bus is an asset to the bus operator. They want to know utilization of the bus. You want to know your electricity consumption. You need to know where the location of the parking lot, empty parking lot. So because of this asset is very important, it requires you to put sensors there. So then you will put, the right sensors there lah. And then for a business, product users, product manufacturers, they will know better about their products. So when you put sensors in at your washing machine, they will know exactly when you use your washing machine, what kind of detergent, where exactly, what time exactly, how frequent it is. And so when this product is being connected, people can capture all the data within that product. So it's good for manufacturer to improve their product. Okay. Let's take a look at when people come and ask me, can Favoriot help me in terms of put IoT in my company? But the main question is what exactly that you want to put IoT. So IoT can do a lot of things, but it depends whether in which area that it does impact your current business. So if you are a technology vendor or vendor solutions provider, you need to come in and understand the requirements of the end user, and the end users have to tell us exactly in which part of their organization process that requires improvement. So I would say that there might be 7M in the business. Any organizations that you can work on, you might work in terms of 1 or 2 M's, or you can even work of all the 7M's in the business. Yeah. So for example, the first M is about the manpower. If you feel that you want to increase the productivity of it's not enough, you want to increase their productivity, or you want to reduce some manpower cost, you can use technology like IoT to do that, from remote monitoring, and also, using meter reading. You can read a lot. I give you an example when what happened in last year, right? When PKP happened and no one can even move around, and even TMB have difficulty to send their people to read the meters, and our meter are being read 3 months later, and then suddenly we found out that our meter bill is so high. So it's because we need human to go out and do a meter reading. So what if you can actually monitor that from remote? So regularly every month you can read it. Yeah. So you can reduce the manpower cost and these issues of wrong reading, or later having people miss 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 the measurement. Second M is about the materials, the materials that you have either in the warehouse or is it on movement. You want to ensure that it's just in time, so you can save time and cost. Exactly what are the stocks required, and to ensure that the conditions of the assets that you have put in. So you have to know exactly the quantity and the quality of the assets. The third M is because if you have a lot of machines that is idling around, and it's very expensive machines, or people have been utilizing it, but you don't know the location of the machine, so it's good for you to monitor their uptime, when is the time for you to do maintenance, or even the time you can measure any errors happening before it becomes too late. Yeah. And then the fourth M is about the method. A lot of times without technology, your method is very lengthy. You need people to do the handover, to do the sign off, and so you can reduce this number of red tapes. You can trigger your process and get approval through blockchain, for example. It's very secure, and anything that happen, it triggers the payment process. So it's much faster. You don't have humans in between to sign off certain things. So it becomes very agile. 100 steps become 50 steps. 50 steps can become even 10 steps to do that. So it's very fast for you to make decisions. And then you might look at the market. You can enter the market. It's much easier. Nowadays with digital, the same problems that we are facing here in Malaysia is happening around the world. So you can expand your reach globally. And then with IoT, you can see that things that have not been developed before is now for us to get the opportunity to build something which is new and introduce this to the market. So you can create new products and create new revenue streams for organizations who wants to enhance their product. product line. Yeah? So it's become new business models, you know. So it also can save them a lot of cost lah. And then you see for the management, as a management, you see a lot more data that's coming in, and from there you can have a better decision making process. It's very transparent to all the management. The data can comes in real time. You can make decision very fast. So rather than from one source of information, you can have source of information that comes very regular. With the tip of their finger, you will know exactly what you want to do. So in all these 7 M's in the business, IoT can play that role, putting the right sensors, the right applications, and the right analytics. You can help the organizations in this. So if you want to deploy IoT, where do you want to start? Because people always say that IoT ni macam robot lah. You put everything is like automatic and it goes like autonomous. But of course, you can make it very high level of applications with intelligence, but it also can cost a lot too. But for you to start off with in any organization, you can start from small, you know, starting from phase 1. We call it, there are 4 phases of IT maturity. Phase 1 is the one that you do is like monitor, you know, you have, to that you can put actuators, you can control it. And the next step, once you collect more data, you can optimize it. And 4th is you can do what we call autonomous, make it, everything runs by itself. Like in any industry you go, you can go and deploy these 4 phases easily. Yeah, you can you can start, like for example in vehicle industry. In vehicle industry, monitoring is one of the simplest way. Yeah, so you know the location of your vehicle. So you open an app, you know where is your car is being parked. So put a GPS there, vehicle monitoring. So a vehicle monitoring is one service that you can offer. But then if you want to do another business, for example, if your car is being stolen, you need to secure your car. So you must have another method to control your car. So you might have like security lock, immobilizer. When people steal your car, it stops the engine, you know, so the car cannot be, you cannot drive the car. The car will stop by itself, or the car automatically lock when you are further away from your car automatically, so they will sense it. So this is just to control it. So you can make a vehicle car security business. So that's one. So in other step, you go to the 3rd level. When you put sensors, many more sensors within your car, you can make it more smarter. So it can tell you the battery level, the fuel level, the engine level, the engine temperature, everything about the car, where the car is being driven. So you will know exactly, you know, the best route every day you travel. It can recommend you when the car is going to be broke down. It will detect any abnormalities in the car, so you send for maintenance, or even you can predict when the car should be sent for service. So you can make this another new service for workshop, for example. So it become like a vehicle workshop maintenance using IoT. So customers can come, instead of having a scheduled maintenance, it become like a preventive maintenance. But once your car is put more and more sensors, it can talk to any car, or it can talk to any surroundings. It become autonomous. So that's why we see that autonomous cars coming in, self-cruising, self-sailing, and all that. You know. So what we are seeing is that in any industry, you put the right sensors, it can help you in the 7 M's. Transportation and logistics. You put sensors just inside the car, it can reduce your truck operations, because you know the utilization of your trucks. Where is it the problem, and where is it going? So all of this, like reducing delivery, increase on time delivery, reducing the system cost, optimizing the whole logistic systems, it will help the logistic industry. This is what happening when you know, you cannot even guarantee the I think the best one is like Lazada, Shopee. You see exactly where the location of your orders, right? But it didn't tell you exactly every minute where's the location of it. You only detect when you go across to one gateway or one point, one center, that once it's scanned, you will know that it's already arrived in Malaysia. But from that point to your house, mostly you'll not see it. Even when the delivery comes to your house, you only suddenly see that the person will call you up. So you don't have that real-time monitoring unless you put sensors at the delivery guy lah. Yeah. So oil and gas, that is a very expensive business which requires you to find the right oil at the right time. You need more data to be collected, and it's very secure and very highly safety environment to detect any warnings. So you put sensors there to give you earlier warnings if anything happen at the pipes or at the platform itself. Yeah. So this is very important. So this for them, if they deploy like 1 million ringgit, 2 million ringgit worth of IoT infrastructure to tell them about this, it can save them a lot of costs. Yeah, because this is a $1 billion business. In smart city, we want to make our city smart and more efficient. Giving you a better quality of life. Parking is much easier for us to find anywhere in Malaysia, anywhere in KL, for example. The reason why a lot of smart cities deploy smart parking is because they want to make the city green. You know why they want to make the city green? Because there are so many carbon monoxide, the carbon footprint happening because too many cars are driving around, and 30% of the congestion happen in any cities is because people are trying to find a car park. They go round and round to find a car park. You miss one car park, you have to go around again, and this is where the congestion happen. And when congestion happen, carbon monoxide is being produced, and the city is becoming bad with pollution. So to reduce that, they deploy smart parking so that people will easily find the right parking space, available parking space. So it's quickly for you to find the right parking, pay it easily, and then you can, there's no longer congestion. You can reduce the congestion, you can reduce the carbon footprint. Of course, you also want to ensure that any problems that are happening in the cities, you can have the city authorities respond faster. So rather than you have to, call them up again and again, the traffic light is not working, the traffic, the road lights are not working. So if this is being managed by sensors and all that, it would help the city to be more efficient. And then we need this, what we call a pilot. A lot of times, new technology like this is something is very difficult for us to adopt, embrace, adapt it. Is because we feel that we are scared, because technology impacts a lot of people. That's the reason that we need to do a lot of pilot trial. I give an example. One of the things that they need to understand the technology maturity. A drone that can fly around, how far, how much, what's the battery going to be look like? You don't want a drone taxi flies and after that it just drops. So you want to know how mature is the technology. Is it ready? Autonomous car, when you take the autonomous car, autonomous taxi, autonomous transport, is it mature enough to tell you anything that's going to happen? An accident. You see, accidents happen in like Tesla and all that. The autonomous car it's one out of how many millions of miles that's happening. So it can minimize that kind of accident, but compared to human who's driving, so accident happen a lot more. Yeah. And then you see like the market adoption. I give an example. Autonomous car when being offered, autonomous taxi. Ladies, would you like to take taxis which doesn't have any driver at all? So you see that how people react with these new technologies. Are they going to subscribe to this service? Are they going to take this service? And then the business models is going to be changed. Previously, people have these new technologies and they will sell it to you, the product. They will sell it, you just buy it. And so it's like CapEx based. Then it's going to be OpEx based, operational based, where you, instead of buying the product, you might subscribe to the product. Monthly that you're going to pay very minimal. Maybe because of the data that you collected now, you know exactly the outcome. Meaning to say, like, you can guarantee that with this service, it can reduce your health by 20%. It could detect your health pattern, and your insurance can be reduced by 20%, for example, because you monitor your health pattern. If you want to take a flying taxi to, if you want to arrive to Kuala Lumpur from in half an hour, you might take a flying taxi. So you pay based on time rather than pay based on service. And then there's the biggest issue is about the policy and regulatory. Policy happens, our old policies, regulatories are very quite old. Traditionally, they define cars differently. Cars might have four wheels, but what if the car doesn't have any wheel at all? You know, if the helicopter is the one is a very big helicopter with rotary, but what if the helicopter doesn't have like rotor like that? And previously carry people, now it carry goods, for example. So regulatory needs to change, adapting to the way that we do business. Now we are sending goods through drones, for example. You're sending people to drones. Pilots, one side is only for pilots at the airport. All pilots can be at the ground, and you cannot fly these drones everywhere. So it must be in a very safe, secured routes. For example, you can fly it everywhere because of security and all that. So things like this is going to change the landscape of policy and regulatory. That's why Malaysia launched what we call the National Technology and Innovation Sandbox. It is required for us to understand of these four things. If you bring in new technologies like drones and robotics, IoT, machine learning, artificial intelligence, does it change the whole landscape of doing business? Our policy is going to change. So the National Technologies Innovation Sandbox will help you to test it out together with the right ministries, agencies, the right parties. You test it out first in a sandbox. A sandbox is like people will say that if you watch Startup, they call it the sandbox. Startup Korea, the drama Korea Startup, they have a sandbox where you can test out your products there. So if you fall down, if you fail, it's just within that sandbox. So it's like a place where you can play around with your new technologies. So as I mentioned to you just now, every new technology is very, very, very disruptive. Uber came in with a new business model. They say that everyone can become a taxi driver. At that time, semua orang marah lah. I mean, the traditional taxi driver pun pukul orang, the Uber driver, the Grab driver, because they are taking their business away. But now you are seeing that everyone wants to become a taxi driver, Grab driver, delivery guy and all that. So everyone can become a taxi driver. Yeah. So, but what happened when a taxi like this doesn't have any driver at all? Then we need to think. So we lose jobs too. No longer that we're going to, now it's being taken away by this driverless technology, taxi technology. So this driverless car also pose a lot of this new way of thinking. Yeah. If you take a look at these 5 levels of automation, I'm not sure which level of automation that your car is now, but when the car is totally human driver that control it, either it's no automation at all, or you have some driver assistance or partial automation where you press one button and you can have a consistent speed that maybe you still control the car. But if you are handing this control over to the car, for example, they can do a parking by itself, the one that we have, the new car, apa nama ni? Apa lupa. Proton have the new car that can, can park by itself, or you might have level 4, which is, level 4 is quite a very high level of automation. The car drives by itself, but you still have a steering in front of you. So when there's anything happen, you can take control of the car. The 5th level of the highest level of automation, when there's no steering at all in front of your car, your vehicle, you can just stand around, sit around in the car, and the car totally drive by itself. So what happened when you have totally 100% that is fully automation? I give you an example. This is one issue that we are facing. Have you ever thought that you can embed ethics inside an autonomous car? Malaysian ethics, the way that Malaysia drive compared to people from Saudi Arabia, from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Indonesia, they drive differently because their ethics may be different. You know, you look at it in front of when you stop at the traffic light. The Americans, the Westerns have, you know, no traffic light. One junction, that four junction, there's no traffic light. So what's the ethic of you allowing or driving across or corner to another lane and all that? Some people doesn't have any ethics at all. They just drive. Who's the first? Who's the one that have the brave enough? We drive through. The one that's scared, they just wait there. So this is what happen when you have totally autonomous car. So katakanlah in the fifth level of autonomous car, when you are driving in that car, and that car, something happen is that it, the car have a problem. It has a brake problem, but it cannot. It has three decision. Either go straight, to the left, or to the right. So what kind of decision if the car is going to make? For example, if it cannot stop, it takes to the right, drives to the left and right, it will hit a group of children. Maybe 4 or 5 children will die. Or we'll go to the left and will hit the old ladies or the old men, and they will die. Or you will take the decision to go straight, hit the wall, and you will die. So, in your opinion, maybe in the live chat, you can put in which decision that the person will gonna take. Will the car intelligent enough and say that I will save the children, or it will go and hit the old ladies because some people say they are already, they are old enough, so umur tak panjang, they hit the old people. Or you want to become the hero, you just go straight and maybe you live or you will die. So what is your decision? So this is something which is need to be embedded in the car. And another scenario is that when the car have a problem, it sees a group of people crossing the zebra crossing, but it cannot stop. It will see old man, baby, or even they will recognize there is also a robber in front of you, or there's a doctor, a cat. So which one that the car will make the decision? So this is what they call the moral machine, this embedded ethics inside the car. So if you go and go to the court, the judge might ask you, you have this problem, but you will defend and says that I'm not driving the car. The car is driverless. So you should blame the car manufacturer. And the car manufacturer will come in and says that it's not my responsibility, it's the person who write the software inside my car. So this is something that is going to comes in, and you will see that it's going to be quite complex. And what happened if the embedded machine, the embedded ethics of one country, and when the car go across to a different country? So will that be changed accordingly? Yeah. So some person says that just hit the wall and become the hero. Okay. So you just go to the moralmachine.net and you can take a look at this. Yeah. So as again just now, if it's autonomous, it's going to disrupt again. But once it's flying, it also disrupts another way of doing things. Yeah. So no longer that even the traffic enforcement is going to be different. They are not going to be at the ground. It's going to be at the air. So now, what if now you believe that IoT is going to be very important and you want to deploy this, and the question is, how do you want to start this? So one of the things that you got to understand that just having sensors and collect data is not sufficient, is insufficient. So you need a lot more than just collecting the data. Because if you look at data alone, you got to first identify them in various manners, because you might have problems of analyzing the data, because you might collect and then suddenly it says that, hey, you cannot do anything with the data. So if the data comes from your sensors, it's personal, like your phone is generating a lot of data. So that data that comes from your phone belongs to you. It's not belong to someone else. You are the one that allows it. So either you want to share it or not, it belongs to you. But there are also organizations which make this private. A lot of organizations like private companies, they keep it, the data just within the organizations. But the government says that, okay, I have sensors that tell you the water level of the river, the quality, water quality of the river, the air quality of the city and all that. They want to make it public. So they will share this data with you. And then there might be that says that, hey, and no one is building any infrastructure to share the data. Someone becomes like a commercial sensor provider. So they build one infrastructure, they put sensors there, and if these sensors attracted, I mean, can help other stakeholders, they will sell the data or they will exchange the data. So this can be done by the commercial sensor provider. So the data can comes from many forms. Anyone who it can be generated by depending on which area. In the smart cities, it can come from even the cats and the dogs if you want to. So there are many ways of generating the data sources, and the way that you analyze the big data things. Some call it 4Vs, some call it 6Vs, some call it 8Vs. You just name it. The basic one is the 4Vs. 4Vs is the way that the volume, the data can comes in small volume, or can be very big data, big volume. Some data can be in many forms. Normally text, it can be audio or video. The data can comes in velocity, can very slow, and some of them can be very fast. A lot of data that's being transmitting every second. Or some data can comes in veracity, uncertainty, social media data and all that. This data is uncertainty, for example. So this data needs to be combined and being analyzed by the people. So as I mentioned to you just now, the data alone is purely symbols and numbers. It doesn't mean anything. If you can bring the data to another level, it becoming better, more useful to the owner or the stakeholders. If the data can be turned and can answer the questions of who, what, where, and when, it becomes information. Information technology, IT, this is where your level is. But you want to answer the questions of how, it becomes knowledge. That's where knowledge technology comes in. Then it goes higher, it becomes answer the questions of why, then it becomes understanding. The highest level is what we call the wisdom. This is where we say that, like IBM Watson, they are creating a machine, a computer to become like human being. But human is the highest level of having that wisdom, because it will take you not only the facts and figures, but also the empathy. People have this empathy which robots or machines doesn't have, so they can make proper decisions. So for example, you can see a person who after operations, sensors might say that, after a while this thing and these things is okay, but as a human, it will carry the person differently, because he will understand the empathy, how emotions going to be when they serve this person. So that's something that a machine have difficulty to understand that level. So once you know that, because data alone is only purely raw data, it's a new currency, but it's purely like oil, black oil, unless you turn the oil into something meaningful. So for example, smart parking. When you launch a smart parking, you put sensors either at the above in the lower ground. You have sensors like infrared that tells you if there's a car underneath it, or when the parking is outside, sometimes they have sensors that can detect the ferromagnetic is on the ground, whether there's a car above it. So one is tells that there is a car, it only tells about 1 or 0, it's empty or full. But is it sufficient? No. You might want to know who parked at the lot, what kind of vehicle, where is it, when is it. So that information is much more valuable for a parking operator, most likely. Yeah. And then it will know if you can convert that data to make sure that you can make better decision making. For example, how to find an overstate vehicle that you can charge it. Whenever there is overstate, you charge it. Or you want to implement a tiered parking mechanism, then you can do a different, overtime, or peak hours or off peak hours. And then you want to understand, as a parking operator, you want to understand why my parking utilization is low, why my neighbor parking is better than me. So you need to understand. So this is something that is required. By having that questions being posed, you will now find the right sensors to be attached. So sensors that tells you about the when you might have timers, about who you might ID, you might what you might certain ID, and where it might have location. So all these sensors now is much more better for you to deploy, rather than you deploy a lot of sensors without knowing what information that you want to translate. Yeah, what answers that you want to get. And then there is these questions about, previously in the telco world, before IoT comes in and become hot topic, they call it machine to machine. So you have one meter reading and then there's one server. So it's one, it's one silo of information. But in a smart city or in an environment that requires you to have many sensors, different applications. For example, in smart city, you might have home, you might have waste, you might have health, you might have transport, you must office. What if this data, you can blend it and you can make better meaning, or you can have a better applications that you can create? Yeah. So for example, from the home and the office and the transport. So with that kind of information, you will know exactly the location of the office or the meeting that you want to go and what kind of transport you want to take place. For example, the home office, home waste and health. So if you have problems in your home, throwing your rubbish and your rubbish is not being taken care by the city authorities, you might have sensors that tell you that measures the garbage bin, that tells you whether it's full or empty, and then it will tell you the city authorities to pick up the waste. So this information can also be being pushed towards the health authorities. They will know that how clean is the city or the surrounding area. Yeah. Or you have a home applications which detects that you fall down, it will alert the hospital, and the hospital will send the right transport, the right routes for them to arrive safely. So this is important, but then to aggregate all this data that comes from many sensors, you require a platform to do that. So as I mentioned, this is one applications. Sensors that come from the traffic lights, the garbage bins, and even the truck. The best part is that these sensors, this data that you have collected, benefits many parties. It can be, like smart waste, for example. It can benefit the city council if you want to sell the data to city council. Or even the recycling plant, you know how much garbage is there, or the manufacturing plant, or the health and safety authorities. So this data, as I mentioned, is one together. You can benefit all these parties. So when you build an IoT solutions, take a look. It's not only one party can benefit. Maybe other parties can benefit on the same data. But this data should be made available. So once it says I'm private, then you lose the edge. So if you want to make it public, you can make it shareable. You can share this with others. So now the last stage, the last part of my presentation is talking about, if you want to take this journey of building an IoT, what are the things required for you to do? What are the kind of knowledge or the tools required for you to build an IoT solution? Yeah. So one of the things that I always insist and encourage any faculties or whoever embark on this journey to learn about the 7 layers of OSI. So if you are in the IT, you will know this, because these 7 layers tells you about how the data is being transmitted from one application to another application, from one network to another network. Because the complexity of IoT is because it covers that 4 layers as mentioned just now, the devices, the networks, the middleware, and the applications. So that is 4. But in technology wise, they just mentioned that I have 7 layers OSI. If you learn this, then you will know exactly, for example, like the physical layer. Layer number 1 is the layer which how you transmit your data, either through coax, cable, fiber, or wireless. Yeah? So that's the 5 layer. The way that you do modulation technique, that is the 5 layer or the physical layer. And then once the physical layer is, you have modulate the data that you over a physical link, Then you want to transmit it, you put into frames. So frames like, then you have used technology like Zigbee 802.11.4, for example. You use Wi-Fi, you use Bluetooth. So these are the communication technologies that in the layer 2. Then you put IP address on layer 3. Then you put TCP, or you want to put UDP address, UDP frames. And from there, you must have a session layer that is going to establish that connectivity for you to make that sharing or exchanging data. And then the presentation layer, whether you want to encrypt it, putting security, SSL, SSH, and all that, or you want to compress your data using JPEG, MPEG, and so on and so forth, you put on the layer 6. The layer 7 is where your end application is. Either you want to use HTTP, SMTP for email, you might use MQTT, one way for you to send your data out. So this is quite complex, and this is what sometimes scares a lot of people, but it's important for you to know the 7 layers, and from there you will know how to build IoT. For example, IoT layers. They also have defined the 7 layers of IoT. As simple as mentioned, like things, the layer number 1, which is comprised of the sensors and the controllers or the actuators. And then you have to define what kind of connectivity that you want to use. And then you need a cloud to aggregate the data. You need some form of analytics, big data analytics, to do the data ingestion, collect the data, store the data, and data analysis to do the reporting, mining, and machine learning. And finally, you create an application on top of that. And then you have the right people to do that decision-based making. Like LP1, for example. LP1 is one of the connectivities now being pushed forward by the IoT community, stating that, hey, I cannot use 4G, I cannot use 5G, I cannot use 3G or 4G, for example, because it is expensive, it is cannot be embedded into a standalone device, it consumes a lot of power, and it's quite limited. Why should I use this kind of technology? Because you might have a better technology. So that's why another group of people who says that I would think that a better technology like LP1, low powered wireless access area network, is a much better technology. For example, they have the license spectrum band where the NB-IoT and the LTEM, these are the one that being pushed by the 3GPP. And then you have the unlicensed band, Sigfox, LoRa. These are the most popular ones. Sigfox in Malaysia is being launched by Esperanti. And then the NB-IoT LTEM is by the main operator, like Maxis, Celcom, DG, and all that. They have this NB-IoT and LTEM because they run on licensed spectrum. And then we have LoRa. Last time we used to have LTZ, but now we also have, because it's unlicensed band, you can put this inside your campus. You can build your own LoRa network. So without asking for, license spectrum and all that, you can build your own IoT infrastructure to collect your data from various sensors. But there are also other technologies here that's quite complex, quite common, and sometimes are very proprietary. So when they want to choose LP1 technologies, they get confused, but these are the popular ones, the LTM, NB-IoT, LoRa, and Sigfox. The reason being, it depends where usage is. Sometimes you require latency, sometimes you require higher speeds, sometimes like 100 kilobit per second, sometimes just 300 kilobits per second is sufficient. So the coverage that it goes, how far it can cover, it depends on your usage. Because of this complexity, people get confused of how to build. So this is another aspect of how, if you look more detail, if you are in the engineering courses, you will learn a lot of these new terms and technologies to support. This is like the physical layer and layer 2, So this is what is critical for you to learn in that within the 7 layers of OSI. So which LP1 network that you want to choose, technology that you want to choose? As I mentioned to you, the 3 most famous ones, Sigfox, LoRa, and NB-IoT. If you take a look at, you want to have a better quality of service, the payload length is bigger, good in terms of latency and can scale out, you might use NB IoT. But if you want to have like better range, better coverage, cheaper cost, battery life is much better, you might even choose like Sigfox or even maybe LoRa, Sigfox for example. Yeah. So this is the spider chart. Normally we'll take a look when we want to deploy, because sometimes you deploy in campus, which network coverage is good. Sometimes you want to deploy at agricultural site, and there is so much foliage, and difficult for you to penetrate with certain frequency band. So you need to take a look which frequency band or which network that supports this. Okay, allow me to share with you what Favoriot can also offer to help you in terms of your journey in creating your own IoT solutions. As I mentioned to you just now, there are 4 levels, and not all one company can build totally the whole solutions. I'm not in the hardware company, so I normally work with organizations that build the hardware. Sometimes the people who build the hardware, they don't know how to manage the whole platform. So they work with the platform players. Or even then, you might have an applications player who build the applications. Then you will work with the telco to connect it directly. So either you want to work with telco or you can build with on your private network. So platforms, what is Favoriot platform? The Favoriot platform is, if you can understand, it's a middleware. It sits inside the cloud. So if you want to control the whole middleware, the whole platform, you manage it, it's on the traditional on-premise basis. From the networking side, storage, servers, up to the data and applications, you own it. You 100%, you have the technical people to manage the whole infrastructure. Yeah. But then if you feel that, hey, I think I don't want to care about the hardware, let you take care of the hardware and you can scale it anytime that you want. So I don't care about the networking, the storage, the servers, the virtualization. This will take care by the vendor. So you call it infrastructure as a service. So then you manage from OS and above. But then you might have a like platform as a service. You allow other people to manage the networking up to the middleware and the runtime. But as a customer, you own the data, you own the applications, you build your own applications. Then it becomes platform as a service. And then if you feel that you want to own and get the vendor to manage everything, they become like software as a service, like email, Google Calendar, whatever applications that you have on that be managed by others, that's called software as a service. But in our case, now we allow you to have full control of your data. You manage your data, you manage your applications, you build on top of this. The rest, let Favoriot takes that particular headache from you. Yeah? Instead of you building the whole infrastructure again, might as well you allow other people to manage that. So IoT platform also comes in many kinds of categorization. Yeah, one is a publicly traded platform. Organizations like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, IBM, they have their own IoT platform. These are the big players. They come in later, but they come in big. Initially in 2014, 2015, mainly this platform come from startups. Organization is quite small. Yeah? And then you have end-to-end connectivity platforms. This is quite many. These are the people who have developed their own hardware, their own sensors, and they also build their own platform to host the data. So people who build smart elevators, smart buildings, smart electricity, smart agriculture, they have their own platform, but they did not open the platform for others to use. It's only for their hardware. It's an end-to-end connectivity. And then there is open source platform, which is being managed by the open licenses, the group of community, like Car, ThinkSpeak, and Zeta and all that. They have their own community to build it, and you can use it, but this is an open source platform. And that is this what we call the developer-friendly platform, which allows developer to come in and create their own applications and control their own data. So you can use your Arduino, Raspberry Pi, whatever that you have to connect it to the platform. People like Carriers, Favoriot, we are the one that encourage people to build their own IoT solution. Okay, we also see that there is some complexities in creating IoT projects in the universities. One is because sometimes they don't have a lab which is have all the four components. You might have like the sensors, you might have the Wi-Fi, but you might not have the middleware, and you develop your own applications. So we see this is incomplete lab. So sometimes you just send data from a sensor with using Bluetooth to your mobile app, mobile phone. But when you go out to the industry, actually you requires that four components. You got to understand the four components. So that's why we are lacking in that space. And then we also see that because of the nature of just giving them and finding their own platform, which I showed you previously, there are more than 400 to 600 IoT platform. You can get headache about how to choose which one is better for you to use. So it takes a lot of time for the students to even start their journey. And then because of that time frame, they are busy building the whole four components. And finally, by the end of the semester, they didn't complete the whole project. What we want you to reduce, to concentrate is actually either building a new sensors and understand the electronics and engineering part of building devices, IoT devices. This is mainly for the engineering people. And also you might have a group of people who just use existing sensors, connect to a platform, but you analyze the data. And then this allow you to build your skills in terms of analytics, machine learning, deep learning, by collecting the data that comes from all these sensors. So this is how we see it, that is a problem. So you can concentrate either on this side or on this side. Yeah. And then sometimes you have also difficulty to find to host the data. Where is it? So you build your own database, and you have create a big headache to create a dashboard and all that. So we all of these four issues that we feel that we can help the students or the lecturers to understand and how to build solutions easily. Yeah. So with that, we have this platform which have an API that can connect to all the sensors, regardless of either it's a core app based or REST or MQTT. You can connect it easily. Sometimes when you build one solution, MQTT is sufficient, but sometimes you require other sensors which have different connectivity. It can be sent through directly through your sensors to a Wi-Fi, to gateway, or you can send through any network. And then from there you can manage the data, and also there's other functions like business logic, notification engine. You can create your own applications by extracting the data out, or your own dashboard. So just to highlight the features, it supports multiple communication protocol. It allows you to easily manage the data, because we create this in very hierarchical method. You can create a project which have many applications. Project like Cawangan UiTM, project Cawangan IoTM Smart Campus, Cawangan Terengganu Smart Campus. And then from there you have smart building, smart parking, smart building, smart lectures as a projects. Under that project, they have these groups. So smart building means building what? Building groups, building A, building B, building C. Under building A, you have sensors. Another fourth level is the sensors. So the sensors can be temperature or humidity sensors. So smart parking will have location sensors. So, and from there it's very hierarchical. From the sensors, data streams that come from the sensors, and the sensors go to different location. From the location goes to the right project applications, and the application goes to finally to the above level is the campus level. So you collect data that comes from all the sensors easily. So it's going to be a real-time data display. It's quite secure because we have the API key for you to manage your data. So you can send alerts, you can send email, SMS, even Telegram. It can display the location inside a map if you want to. We have graph board. Graph board means you have create a graph board that can just look like the one below, and then you can publish it publicly. Yeah. You can also send control commands. You want to control your lights or whatever, and others. We have a referral program and user portfolio for you to share your strength to the public. So with that, we have a lot of users that's coming in and become the end users from 109 countries around the world. 75 or 80% of actually Malaysian. You can scan this and join the members. It's quite, we have package which is free. You can use it. In fact, a lot of universities here in Malaysia have been using this. So what are the skills that are required for you to build? So these are the top IoT programming languages. You can see the 14 down there. And the most popular languages, depending on which area that you want to build. If you're in the devices area, you might need the skill like C or C++. If you are Java, if you are gateways, you want to build a gateways, you need to Java, Python, or C or C++. Or you might want to build the cloud or maintain it, and then you might need a Java, JavaScript, Python, or PHP. So they see that the most valuable programming languages are the Java, the Python, C, and C++, because it can go across many multiple devices, networks. It's quite mature in terms of documentation. This is quite popular, and hopefully you guys have been doing this. So they're quite a simple step for you to start your IoT journey. What we have done, we have partnered with Myduino. It's a Malaysian company. They have developed Hibiscus Sense, is an IoT board. It's a Malaysian-made IoT board. It's based on ESP32. There's a lot of sensors there. Altitude sensors, barometer, humidity, temperature, accelerometer, gyroscope, and it has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity. So if you want to use that, it will reduce the complexity of connecting other sensors lah. So you have all these sensors already built in. And from there, you can connect to, for example, a Wi-Fi, and then you send the data to the platform. So that is a sample application. So you can scan these free IoT resources. We show a lot of tips and tutorials and projects that you can start off your journey easily. So for example, the device that I mentioned to you, like Hibiscus, they have this altitude, humidity, accelerometer, gyroscope. You can turn that into a tracker badge, for example. If you can put into a box and put all of the right sensors and put some peripheral electronics and all that, and make it into a use case. You can have a SOS alarm button, can detect people who's man down detection. If you are not moving, for old people, why they are not moving. You have ID, you have two-way communications. You can apply this into various use cases. From postal, food delivery, public transport, retirement home, social worker, security, employee, forest workers, you name it. So this is how, from a simple prototype, you can move towards a commercial product. But this is not something that commercial from that product, but it's an example of how you can build it. So we also have, when we work with this, we thought of, can we create more and more talent out there? If you are already in the universities, you might even use the Hibiscus Sense and all that. Or even you have an IoT training kit that comes from one organization that we work with. So they use the cloud as a way. So you have devices, you have a cloud, you have the right connectivity, and you can build your own applications. So these are some of the partners that we have worked with. So, and then that is in terms of the lab applications, but in the real applications, we also can build applications that can cater for certain segment of the market, or certain, like I said just now, if it's meant for project, the name of the project is smart environmental project as a project. Under that project, you have applications for water quality, you have applications for measuring the water level, the weather, and also the water meter monitoring for leakage and all that. So it become one project for environmental. So you can blend the data together. Another projects, if you look at, like, for smart city, the people in the data center, they have this ambient temperature to monitor them regularly. You have parking counter that can show the boom gate, people coming and out. That's as simple as that, to find the car park at the number of cars going in and out. And then the odor monitoring to monitor the smell of the treatment plant. And then you have noise and air pollution. So these are some examples of where people have been approaching us and ask for the kind of solutions. So if you go into the manufacturing center, the manufacturing area, you can do like asset monitoring. You put some, tagging, just the one that I mentioned to you, but you make this into a tagging application. Warehouse is a very simple application for temperature, humidity to look the condition of the warehouse. Power monitoring recently that we have with one campus, they have problems of rooms which have network hubs. These rooms in different buildings, sometimes when they are down, the network hub is down, the power is down and the network is down, and the people within that building says that, is it IT problem or is it power problem? Yeah. So they have difficulty in identifying the issue early. So what they did is that we monitor the power, so you can detect whether when the power is off, it will alert this to the right facility management, and they will come and resolve the issue. And when it's on again, they will also get the detection whether the power is already on. So this is just for miscommunication between the parties who maintain the service. And then smart factory, as I mentioned, you can the uptime and downtime of the machines, the surrounding area, all that. Okay, just a few last slides. What I'm saying is that as we know that the technology comes in cycle, so we are the new generations, the people who are very at the early stage of the IR 4.0, the early stage of IoT maturity. We feel that we want to become the innovators, the early adopters. Yeah, but sometimes we also have that difficulty to cross that chasm, because once you cross that chasm, it become everyone is using that. Yeah, we are trialing that, so that's why we do this in the small and test it out, understand the four things that I just now mentioned to you. It's about the technology maturity, the market adoption, the business model, and the policy regulatory. Once we have solved that, it goes into that high volume of usage adoption. So the early majority use that. But once we have that, we also don't want to become the people who come in at the very late stage, and where the technology no longer is going to be replaced by others. And then suddenly you found out, hey, I just want to buy this infrastructure, buy these services, and new technology is going to replace that. You don't want to become the laggards and the one that very late in the market. Yeah. So some people are, takes a long time for them to digest, and also to become risk taker, and then become the late majority. But the innovators and the early adopters, the one that wants to push this forward. I call them the generation IoT. So become one of them. We believe that in Malaysia, if you want to go beyond that stage of what do you call that, be proud about our products, we need to become the producer nation. Only become the producer nation, you will have the right skills to support that. With the right skills and the talent, which is very difficult to get to produce, because we don't want to become the consumer. If you want to become the consumer, you don't have to learn all these engineering things. Just learn very high level, that's it. But if you want to become a producer nation, you need to understand the fundamentals of building an IoT solutions, of building the engineering part. Yeah. So then only that you feel that your value is worth, and people become a high salary paid graduates. So how to start? It's simple. First, you have to find the problem statement, develop a small and very focused solutions that you can show it to the management. It's a very immediate impact. You don't have to spend millions of ringgit. You may spend thousands of ringgit to start off with. Once you have that, you can scale it up. So the second part is that after you have developed a silo application, but then later you can integrate with your existing back-end system, so that you have more seamless data integration. And then on the third level, once you have more and more data that comes in from different places, you collect it, you can create a better workflow, a different business model, a better insights about your data. That's where you can innovate the whole business. Start with these phases and work together in becoming and transforming this. So regardless whether it's, as I mentioned, the question is IoT in the new norm, IoT, whether it's a new norm or the old norm, IoT still remain the same thing, except that we are now understanding what exactly needs to expedite the whole process. Before we go into the IR 4.0, we need to be, what we call that, we need to be in the digital world, in the digital transformation world. And with that digital transformation, that we are ready with the whole infrastructure, then we can move towards the applications of new technology like IoT and the rest. So if you guys need more information, I have put up some of the notes here. You can check it out, scan it, and you can take a look at some of the notes that have the things that have put in place. So at that, we have another 20 minutes. I will end my presentation. So I will pass this back to the moderator, Fazlin. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mazlan, for your interesting and enlightening presentations. I think all of us, including me, have a lot of idea, and then we know about the IoT. Okay, now we move to the Q&A session. So there are several questions here in the YouTube chat. So let me read the questions. So this question comes from Anis Shahira. Okay, Anis Shahira. The use of IoT the use of IoT expose a substantial amount of personal data in extreme detail without the user active participation. How can Dr. explain about the privacy issues in this matter?
Okay. So there are two things we need to take a look about. One is security, one is about privacy. Okay. I think the issue of security is the issue of technical, meaning to say people are not able to hack into your system, and you have to ensure that all layers of your data transmission is going to be well secured. And now from the day that you send your data out and the day that you transmit into the whole network, the platform hosts it, and also people extract the data out. So that is more technical part. So that element. But the privacy is mainly about business decision. It's about business process. So if your policy is your privacy is not very clearly stated, and people just didn't read the clause, you might have problems later, because a lot of applications, when they ask you to, if you want to participate, you say, if you want to install whatever, you say yes, but you didn't realize that the data is being used for other purpose. That's why I think it's quite critical for people who, as a consumer, normally you have to read the actual clause. That will protect you. But in the case of applications in the commercial world, in the private world, is what is a lot more more private. They know, they have defined earlier that the data is being used for what purpose. So in private organizations, when they build the whole infrastructure, the data is only being used by them. Yeah. But when the data is being captured through a human personal, that's where permission base is required. So read it, the clause carefully.
Oh, okay. So thank you, Doctor. Next, we have questions from Muhammad Ashraf Azman. Okay, the design of the IoT system is also quite complicated. So I am sure that the maintenance also are not very easy. So what Doctor think about it?
Okay. Yes. Okay. How can I answer this? So the people who manage the solutions normally are the people who understands the technology. So it's easier for them to, if you outsource the maintenance to them to manage it. But it's not to say that it's impossible for the internal people to do the maintenance. Maybe their maintenance is only at the first level, where the maintenance is to detect any issues related to their services, whether the operations is down or not. So it goes to level 2 where it requires you to have some intervention, come in and solve the problem. You might have your internal people who have the skills to solve it, or you can outsource it to your product vendor lah, who actually the one that sells the solution. So that is true. But if you want to bring up your maintenance people to that level of expertise, then you have to learn all that, the whole layers lah, which I mentioned to you earlier. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think this is, we have a last question. This is my question actually. So about the big data, okay, you know that big data is a very interesting technology to implement the IT, right? So we know that the IoT, we can eliminate the expenses of the employees, okay? But what about the cost of the hardware, okay? Hardware, software, and also the professional skills for handling this kind of matter? So what do you think about that, Doctor?
Sorry, the question is about doing the big data analytics and how to the cost of doing
Yes.
this big data analytics. There are a few things that we need to understand. Big data means really big data lah, not something very small. Otherwise, we don't categorize that as a big data. Secondly, you need to know that you might have the right, if you want to do internal, you might to have the right skills to do that. Meaning to say, not only the big data scientists or the business intelligence people, data analysts, and all that. Data engineering, but you need to have people who in the domain area that can help you. Meaning to say that you have a lot of this data, how you can translate this data into something which is meaningful. So if you are in the doing waste management, you have the waste management people who can tell you. If you can in the flood, you have to get the people in the flood expertise to tell you which data needs to be gathered. So the cost of hosting the big data is quite high if you didn't realize that the data that you captured is most of the time, if you didn't make the proper plan, you might acquire 90% of the data is which rubbish data. You didn't use that data. Only 10% is only going to be used for that purpose. So that's why you need to plan it well. Otherwise, the cost of the whole infrastructure can be very huge. Yeah. So that's why I think a lot of organizations now, instead of having their own infrastructure of storage and all that, they allow and they outsource this to the cloud player, and for them to manage that hosting of hardware. Because every time that you need to increase your hardware, most likely you can just subscribe to for a temporary period for hosting that, for analyzing that service. After that, you don't have to pay. But if you are hosting everything, even the storage, servers, CPU and all that, it can be very costly and takes time for you to need to upgrade. Yeah, so that's why we encourage a lot of people to work together with the under the cloud player.
All right, so actually it depends on the situation for the organizations, right? Okay, so finally, we come to the end of our webinar sessions. We want to say thank you to our speaker, Dr. Mazlan, for his informative and exciting talk. And once again, thank you everyone. For all participants and viewers, please fill in the form that has been provided by the committee. So the link to the form can be accessed from the YouTube chat. All viewers need to fill in the form to get an e-certificate. Okay? If you do not fill the form, so you will not get the e-certificate. And additional for UiTM staff, you will get the training hours. Okay. On behalf of the organizing committees, I would like to apologize if we have made any mistakes throughout this event. Hopefully, this event will be beneficial for everyone. It's been our pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a pleasant day. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.